up to speed, up to speed, up to speed.
Live from the apocalypse. Get out your notepad and pen. This is State of the Game. Take notes. My name is Dan O. I am a hero to those with not enough hats. I have a lot of hats. So, well, and my co-host joins me every week. Is a hero to the musty because he's never been musty.
No.
He, and that's a wonderful thing. K Diggy, thank you for joining me every week.
Yeah, man.
Here and I am excited because we have someone who taught me a lot about music when I was in my infancy of writing about music. This is one of the first rappers who ever reached out, complimented me on a review, had me straighten out their bars that I had misdone. Back in the mixtape era, K, it wasn't on Genius. You just had to listen to it 1,000 times. And so I would mess it up and they'd reach out and I'd correct it. So, but it meant a lot to know that people were paying attention. And this is an artist who just keeps getting better, keeps becoming the better version of himself. So, Starlito, thank you for being here.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
No problem. No, and you have a new album called Imposter Syndrome that you have recently put out, and it's magnificent. I think one of the things I wanted to talk to you about as a survivor of the mixtape era, I think what the gift and the curse of the mixtape era was that people were hungry. They were putting out music. They were getting a name for themselves. But then they kind of didn't know how to differentiate their album release from their mixtape release.
Yeah.
And so they dropped their album, you'd be like, I like the mixtape better, and it would create, I don't know, you're competing with yourself in this weird way. Did you ever run into that? Did you move past that? How did you parse that strategically?
That's a good question. I watched the mixtape era kind of morph into the streaming era, I guess, would maybe be what followed it. But at the time when the blog era, mixtape era became the thing, I had been in the music industry for 7-8 years at that time. I started putting out music in 2003. I brokered my first deal in like 04. I think I officially signed January 05. So I survived so many different eras. It was like trap rap. It was club and crunk rap, actually. When I first began my career, Lil Jon was on the heater. And I mean, me being in the Mid-South, I saw like the emergence of like Boosie and Webby and T.I. become a superstar, etc. And I got a deal in the midst of that and what will become trap rap. I even was on Young Jesus Trap or Die. So I watched so many waves, and that kind of turned into ringtone rap at a point even. And from the ringtone era, you got to think that I've already named three almost like dynamically different pockets of genres of music and even the way it was received. And so I think it was like the constant evolution of how music was received. Music ultimately became popular. My roots are underground. So
Right.
It was just kind of surviving the times. The mixtape and blog era to me was like prime time because there was more freedom. It was like if you made dope stuff, there was space for it to be appreciated and well received. There's so many artists that I probably listen to forever that the blog / mixtape era is where I got introduced to that music. And although I had been at it for a while, it kind of gave me a confidence to like reinvent myself and be able to present my like creativities within the music, the intricacies, if you will, because it was like there was really no right or wrong. And with the mixtape era, you found artists that were just dropping back to back because there were platforms that supported it, and people seemed to be more receptive to more music from the mixtape era. And to your question more specifically, I did see a lot of artists get hot via mixtapes and then trying to transform to like more industry standard and putting out like albums or polished bodies of work. And a lot of times, like I agree, it would fall short of the standard they had created with them for themselves. Is like the saying goes, you work your whole life at your debut project. And then, you know, you got 6 months to a year to follow up from it. And what would happen is we get introduced to these artists from in their rawest form in mixtapes. And for me, because it was so much about surviving, I had been in a space where I was treating every project like the last one or like it could be the last one. I was in that space and going back to 2007, I put out a project, Starlito's Way 2. It was a double disc because I was living so wild and things were kind of out of control on the home front that I didn't know if that would be my last body of music. And I honestly at that time felt my trajectory was like death or jail. Just it was not proud of it at all, but that's where I was. So I felt like all the greats had double discs. Tupac's, Biggie's, Jay-Z had a double disc, etc. And so I made a double disc, and it kind of blurred the lines of a mixtape and an album. It was very like album oriented in that it had strong themes and otherwise, but I was like a mixtape artist at heart. Even at that time, I came up like jacking beats and doing like the making my own like DJ mix style projects even up to that point. So with that, and it became my like best, like most well received project at the time. I kind of followed that. So when the lines got blurred from mixtape to streaming, I was already straddling the line. Even I did Project Mental Warfare in 2012, and I mean I put it on DSPs just because I had the access to, but I was at that point like thriving on the mixtape sites and in that circuit of things. I just fashioned a project like a full length. I mean, I just kind of altered how I presented it or how I serviced it, and that gave me a little bit of like it was like a learning curve of understanding like the differences of how to market, how to try to get people to where you want the traffic to go. A year later, I did a distribution deal with Empire, and I can remember the first project I did with them was called Turkey. And at that point, I kind of pivoted away from the traditional mixtape route of releasing music because it became more lucrative. I charted on Billboard. It was #1 on the Heat Seekers chart, and I can't remember what number on the top 200, but I was very close to putting that project on that Piff and Live mixtapes and everywhere the mixtapes went. I just happened to just do this new partnership and was like, all right, I'm gonna see what it's worth. I'm gonna let you guys put it out where it belongs via your distribution services. And I got a I got an email 4 or 5 days later, like, hey, you're projected to make Billboard. And I'm like, well, Billboard. You know what I mean? I was prepared to put it out for free. So for me, it was like I I didn't ever really treat the music differently. But it also wasn't my first time around, which I think was where a lot of artists fell short because they came out so strong in mixtape form. And then I I, I do understand kind of switching your format to try to conform to standards. Because a lot of times you can get in business with people that present like this is the way it should go, or you should, try this. And it's like, you probably should have just kept doing what you did to get there. So I think that happens. But after Cold Turkey, the rest was history for me. I did at one time I put a mixtape out the day before I put an album out, just because I felt like there was people that got their music from these mediums, and I wanted them to have something. And also it was like literally to get the word out that I'm putting out an album like for purchase or to be consumed differently tomorrow. And it competed with itself, but like I was okay with that because I wasn't competing with anybody else. That was kind of the sweet spot for me as well. Even recently, I put out two quote unquote mixtape style releases in the 2 weeks before my album dropped, just because I just want to be heard at the end of the day. And I feel like it can create a cycle. If you hear this and like it, it can send you to what else does he? Oh, he's dropping. He's back out here, kind of thing. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you study like Attention, Ties, and Taxes 3, right?
Yeah.
Comes out, and that's like, let me stretch out, get my bars off, let's do this.
Right.
And Imposter Syndrome comes after, and it's like, oh, this is suited and booted Starlito. Like this is, this is ready for the world stuff. Like it's cool to have both of those lanes, and balancing and scheduling that is important, right? Like, um,
For sure.
people know this is the big game. Line up here. This is the one. Um, but yeah, it's interesting to me. Like the thing that bothers me the most about when people talk about the mixtape era is when they talk about it dying, because it didn't die. It was absorbed by the industry.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right?
for sure. I think that's true. I think that's true too.
Yeah. I mean, it was the age we're in is the mixtape era just to the next level. Even if you see like, oh man, artists are releasing so much music now. I'm like, that started in the mixtape, you know?
Well, yeah. I mean, it right. It got it transformed, and it's because it's business. Like I see some of my favorite quote unquote mixtapes on DSPs, and they're even some of mine. They're missing songs because sample clearances, because there was jack beats involved, and so anytime you refine something, you're gonna lose some of the origins of it, or some of what maybe made it more pure, I guess. But it just became business. I think the powers that be, the labels and otherwise, even I guess even some artists could see that, man, we're sending all this traffic to these other mediums, the innovators in the mixtape like website world. Like some of those guys are my friends. Some of those guys really supported my music, my career throughout. But I could see from an industry side, like we've got this artist signed, we're invested X amount into this, and then he's sending you guys 3 million mouse clicks over here to your website, and you're selling ads off of it and etc. Like we need those, you know what I'm saying? We need those streams. We need the traffic coming our way because we got skin in the game. We're invested. And even as an indie, for me, like I was always trying to figure out where this thing is going. Because it's like, well, yeah, that's cool. I'm glad that my music is out there as far as it can go. But even when my following was smaller, it was kind of captive. So I'm like, well, why don't you guys go to grindhard.com instead of whatever other website, and I'll host the music natively here, or I'll create a platform where if you want to click through and you want to support, there should be room for that there. Because I came from selling CDs hand for hand. That's how I built my buzz.
Right.
So I feel like I earned the core of my audience one at a time, and I just still subscribe to that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Kay, I think there was on the mixtape era front, like you drop a hot mixtape, you become really popular, you get a deal, and then when you walked in the office, they'd be like, "Hey, Neil will do a feature with you," right? Like, and they would plug in the kind of pocket people they had, feature wise, producer wise, and then your debut album would start sounding like everything on the shelf, right? And
Right. Oh, yeah.
oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I'm listening.
No,
I'm agreeing. I'm just
and I was
agreeing.
just to say, like, Starlito was a little bit exempted from that because your style is so solitary and so claustrophobic. You couldn't really fit Neo into it, if that makes sense.
Well, I don't think I was exempt from it. This is my truth. I think that happened to me like it happens to a lot of artists. It just happened to me so early and so young that that's part of what created my style. Was, I mean, I don't know if you're aware, but like I did a deal through Yo Gotti's imprint with Cash Money Universal Motown in '05.
Oh
And
shit, that's before.
and
Okay,
during that time, it was like I got there, I was 20 years old when I signed on. I was 19 when I met those guys. I was a deer in headlights in the sense of I grew up listening to these guys and more or less like idolizing them on some level, and I was happy to be there. So although I was seasoned enough to be in the rooms I was in and to broker the situation, I was listening and following the lead rather than like dictating, rather than, this is what I got and just presenting it in full. It was like, all right, what do we do now? What do I do now that I'm here? Now there's a budget involved. And all that happened. I got encouraged to work with certain producers. I had access to the people that were around, and some of that was beneficial, and some of it was a wash. A lot of it burned up my budget while we were chasing the hit, rather than that's what you fast forward 5 years or so past that, and I'm like, man, I don't really care about going to radio, or I don't really care about sounding like what's in. Like, there's some people that have been rocking with me for the last 5-6 years. I'm gonna keep doing what they're receptive to, and that's just grown and evolved. I've gotten more comfortable in my own skin and wanted to just present like the best. I think you said it when you were introducing me, the best version or better version of myself every time. Or there's just subtle things that weren't on the radio that I fell in love with in rap and in music, and I want to bring those things to the forefront. So, but I think I was in the same. That happens. It's continuing to happen, and it's gonna always happen. I even see it with indie situations. I've seen indie imprints that have a stake in certain producers' dealings, and it's like, hey, we're gonna, now they're trying to force beats on you.
Right.
It's like, I mean, I get it because it's business. It's like, I would probably do the same if I was in that position. But even all the artists I work with, I want them to, like, even on my label that I do partnerships with, I try to stay hands off and less asked on the creative end, because it's like, hey, it's you that I'm partnering with. I'm not trying to create another me or another whatever. Like,
Right.
let's push what you got. It may be game changing. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to change it before it changes the game.
Yeah, there are two types of teachers that I've ran into: the type of teachers who are teaching you to be them, and the type of teachers who are teaching you to be the best you, who can
Yeah.
see your characteristics, your traits, and they're like, they're brainstorming with you rather than, do this, so I understand that a lot.
Mm. I had a question. As someone who's been making music for 20 years, how have you seen the business side evolve? Like, you said that you're someone who likes to look forward and see what's coming next. Has the music industry or business evolved to what you thought it was going to become?
On certain levels, yes. On certain levels, like, as far as I come from, my first mixtape was literally downloading instrumentals on Napster and LimeWire. I'm aging myself, but this is just, and I also, like I said, pressed up physical CDs. I saw that certain technologies were gonna become dated, just like, growing up as a kid, we listened to cassette tapes in the car. I watched that phase out and turn into compact disc, and was like, nobody buys cassettes anymore, or there been a record player in the house. And I mean, even though vinyl has made a resurgence over other like physical media, it's like on the technology end, I'm like, okay, from the time you could plug an aux cord into a stereo and the iPod became the iPhone, even, I'm like, wait, we're gonna be getting our music on the phone directly soon. And and that was even as the ringtone era, like, that I spoke about. Like, so I was, an early, I don't want to say adopter, but I was just aware that, like, hey, these things are changing. What's the infrastructure? Like, what will we do? Like, I was pressing thousands of discs at a time, and I'm like, I can remember the first time I pressed thousands and thousands of mixtapes and had no one to hand them to, because, it was like, well, I don't have a CD player in my car, or the music I was listening to, I was getting from mixtape sites. It wasn't getting them from the mom and pop store or record store or the gas station or bootleg, whoever. Like, I could just access everything. It was at my fingertips. So I saw that part of it, and I was trying to like think ahead to what would that mean in business. And so that part, like, yeah, it wasn't that it was predictable, but I was, the writing was on the wall for it being that way. I didn't really foresee. I guess it all traces back to technology, because like operating a brick and mortar studio is becoming like a tough business to survive in, because for $1,000 you can have compatible enough equipment that's serviceable and record your own music. So it's difficult to charge somebody $50 to $100 an hour for a proper studio setup, the kind of places that you used to have to go to, like so it's certain parts was like yin and yang, give and take of like gatekeeper aspect or industry standards and norms that are just crumbling and that are changing. So there's parts of it that were not like predictable at all. But as far as in business, like I borrowed and adapted so many other ethics from like bigger like entities and successful higher up labels, and like, well, let's apply this on a way smaller scale. And some of that was also like more like merged with survival instincts is what kept me afloat through all those changes. But yeah, some of them were predictable, just because like you just gotta see it's changing, because there was a time when, like, for myself, I wasn't making any money off the music, but if I could make my music like viable enough in the mixtape era, then I could go do shows from the music, and that was the business model almost, and that was also what kind of prompted labels to adapt the 360 model. As in, like, getting out of a deal at that time, I was at a crossroads of like, do I sign a new deal? Do I sign with another company? What? And I was like, I was already working. So when I get out of that deal and I get myself almost to a peak of being hot, when I'm going and sitting with labels, I have no interest in doing a 360 deal, because I'm already on the road and I'm already making money on the road. And I'm like, so you buying into that is gonna cost so much more. There's not even a price on it, because I just understand that this is where it's going. And they saw it. It was like, all right, the music can get hot without even the metrics that align with it. The music's just everywhere, and it's kind of like a wildfire. So that part was like, I was able to see that, like, oh yeah, they're gonna want a piece of everything, because otherwise there were so many artists that were getting hot and making all the money, even if they were signed, because like you were asking, the mixtape music is what was what they were hot based off of, and it wasn't something that a label could monetize like in real time.
Yeah, that's huge.
So,
That's huge. No, the other thing, Kay, that I think Starlito was kind of has seen develop is like the America's relationship with Southern rap evolve, right? Like I keep it real. I think when people started paying attention to Southern rap music, I think there were a lot of white audience people, critics included, who were joyriding through it for the finger snaps and for the the D4L Waka Flocka-ness of it, and you were always a cold splash of water on the face for that thing, to be like, no, this shit is real and it's lyrical and it means something to me, and it always will. And I think you helped people understand that there was another way, if that makes sense.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it was. I appreciate that. That's a compliment. I think there was there's just a lot of pockets of culture, and I can remember being a Southern artist, and I can remember being in so many rooms during the time when I was signed and otherwise, and it's like, oh, like can really rap. Like there's lyrical Southern rap, and so that was one of my favorite artists that broke through in the blog era was Big Crit. And because it was authentically Southern, like sonically, and it was like a theme that was so like homegrown, organic. It felt vintage almost, but he was really like rapping his ass off too.
Yep.
And that was a one, I'd say one of my peers in rap, if you will, that like even almost gave me some confidence of like, yes, we can be ourselves, we can do it our own way, and it stands toe to toe. Because I got hip to this music at the same time as like Wiz Khalifa, and the same time that like right around the time of finding like J. Cole's music early on, and well, probably Wale was kind of in the mix a little bit before then, but I was like, this guy's from Mississippi, so it was at that time was when I saw the tide changing of like, we can be whatever we want to be. I mean, Currency is another great example. He's a predecessor of mine. He's out like a homie and a peer, but he's a survivor. You know what I'm saying? He did a deal with No Limit and then Cash Money, Young Money, only to find his stride in this pocket of very like hip hop, a purist hip hop rapping level. I mean, it's lifestyle music, I think, but he can rap. It's nothing like any of those Southern like prototypes or trends. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
Currency's one of the reasons I started writing. Just I was reading a Currency review, and the reviewer was kind of saying this is good, but it's not Southern enough. And it was like, and it became like, oh, this dude wants Gucci Mane. Like he wants everything to be Gucci Mane, right?
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
and so I was like, oh shit, like this is fucked up, And I wanted to present another side of that, but like I think, yeah, it started when it started, like people from outside the South would just call it Southern rap, and now I think
Yeah.
people have a better understanding of New Orleans doesn't sound like Atlanta, right?
Right.
Like Nashville doesn't sound like Houston. Like people understand the different geographic trajectory of the sounds, maybe.
Right. Right. There's very, very distinct pockets throughout. And there was a time we were all just in a pile together. It's like it's not East Coast, it's not West Coast, and it's just, even when Pimp C went on that legendary rant, Atlanta wasn't the South. I felt like one thing that missed for sure, like Southern United States. I'd laugh when I first heard it. But I think there was some truth to what he was saying, and that like Atlanta's not the end all be all of Southern music, and neither is Houston, or Texas or whatever. And like I think the context of his rant was something else entirely, but it is exactly your point. Like Houston and Louisiana are not worlds apart, but they're completely different places music. You know what I'm saying? It's like having worked with artists from New Orleans and Baton Rouge and a ton of artists in Houston, I'm gonna make different records with all those artists. I mean, that's just like to me, LA music and Bay Area music is not really entirely like identical. They have their own identities in music. But you'd have to just tap in and even realize that. 'Cause it'd be easy to say West Coast or Cali music and leave it there. But
Yeah, from the
it's kind
time
of surface level.
from the time the Chronic dropped until Tupac died was like America's education on West Coast rap, and then the early 2000s, like that period was when they started going to school on the South and the different dimensions of it. So I think, yeah, you were definitely right in the center of that. So that was been interesting.
Yeah.
Good deal. But yeah, Kay, tell me how you felt about Imposter Syndrome. How did it hit you, man?
I mean, I loved it. It was for me, I thought it was like a really thoughtful meditation on, regret and really change, how relationships change and how you adapt to those changes in a relationship.
Wow. Yeah, I can appreciate that perspective.
Yeah, especially the intensity of the emotions within each song.
Yeah.
And like when you go from one intense emotion to the next intense emotion, you start to see the story unfold, right? Like, oh shit, like here we went from if to unblock me, you know? Like, oh shit.
Well, yeah, there was a record in between there too. So there's like artistically there's a story being told within the stories, if you will, because those are just records, but the vast majority of the album is pulled from some level of personal experience. And there's three consecutive records that deal with like, interpersonal relationship type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not that necessarily that was one relationship that went from here to here to here, but more so like even from the psyche end of, a honeymoon phase and everything being like you got rose colored glasses on to the Sin For Me record is very like lustful and intense in its own way. But if you consider it, that's almost two different people that could be thinking like, wow, maybe this is the one to being so narrow minded that it's like this is what we're doing and this is all that matters. Like those are two different sets of emotions. And they're honestly conflicting emotions. So the undertone I was trying to create was that I'm talking about two different people from If to Sin For Me, because if the subject of the lyrics in If was the one, I'm gonna certainly run her away dealing with the the person that's on the other end of the lyrics for Sin For Me, and that's how you arrive at Unblock. So I mean, I was very like intentional about the sequence of the album. I think when you said regret and the evolution and changes of relationship, even my relationship with myself, maybe is the centerpiece of it all, because obviously I'm in on every record, but yeah, I think that is the strongest of undertones. Even starting the album with Ego Death is to say like I've overdone it as far as like I've leaned heavily into the theme of like a caricature, and it's what I feel like is prevalent in rap. It's I'm with no pride I say I'm a street rapper. I've been a street rapper, and I've watched my peers, I've watched my predecessors, I've watched the people I admire in that space like lose their luster or lose their appeal. To me, I just have to enjoy and go back and listen to their old music, because I'm like, man, I don't want to hear the same thing regurgitated. Like, who are you now? Where are you now? Because for a lot of them, I've seen you have this extreme level of success, and there's no way you're doing that stuff that you were talking about 15 years ago or longer or whatever. And at the same time, it's like, I mean, we're our dads and all kinds of things, and surely you've lived, what I'm saying, life on some like relatable level. So for me, it's like detaching from that. Because I'm like, man, people tell me how my music has affected them, changed their lives, and etc. And I'm like, man, it's kind of important for me to present my authentic self. And so I was like, even where that means a lot to me, I'm like, I can't like coast off that, off of some like stardom, or you know what I mean? Like it's about like leveling. So I start with Ego Death to say I'm denouncing all the things that I don't personally think are cool or aren't really like my ideals. And at the end of the album, the finish line, like the first lyrics of the album say my thoughts racing where they're circulating like NASCAR, and that's to say it's like I'm running a race, or there's a race and it's circular or it's cycle. Like that's how I start the album, and I end the album with finish line, which would be at the conclusion of a circle of a NASCAR race or a track and field race or whatever. the same way my thoughts are circulating, I arrive back at the same point I started. The starting line is a finish line, and those kinds of races. And on Finish Line, it's the only record where I'm kind of propping up the street stuff, and I'm only propping it up to say that I feel like the other people y'all listening to, most of them are lying, or they're presenting it wrong. Like then I'm not. I'm totally saying I'm not doing this stuff in real time, but I've done some things. I've experienced a lot. It is my backstory, but it's like it doesn't really mean that much. Only that for the sake of comparison, I don't think you can pull from a lot of these other guys' stuff as facts. And I end there because I created the album to be listened to multiple times. Or, when you get to that last track, you should go back and like that's not where I want or need to be. So let's kill the ego and get back to, what I'm saying, like where I'm aiming to be, or I'll tell you more about the evolution, because I ended more or less where I started. I was doing this and doing that, and you know what I'm saying, it's kind of coded and there's some details there, because it's just like, yeah, man, I'm I'm still that guy at my core, but I don't care to be. You know what I'm saying?
Right. No, I understand completely. I mean, but when I was, in my 20s, locked in with my best friend, just writing all the time, fiction, and we were writing, exchanging ideas. We were like hardcore realists. Realism was our shit, and we were like, we want to get to the heart of what real life is about. And the harder we dug into personal truths and like difficult shit, the more excited we were for each other, right? And that is how I feel listening to you and Don Trip. Like that is you guys have that energy of like, you finally got that shit out there. No one else would say this but you. Like that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah. And you
that's
guys
definitely a lot of what I take from Don Trip's music. Like, yeah, that was on the two features on the album. One of them, I heard the track and I was like, man, I'm on a call. I need to reach out to some really lyrical guys. The beat just spoke to me, the vibration of it. I was like, I want a rapping song, like just bars on top of bars, because I think the game it's a void that needs to be filled. And so he was obviously the first person that came to mind. He's like my closest rapping peer. But like Landlord and Propane, my landlord's from Las Vegas, Propane's from Houston. I'm like, man, these guys are like we were talking about, just from these drastically different places. But I'm like, the fusion of it, of like, I know that they can all rap and deliver. The other feature that Don Trip is on, the F5 Times 2.0, I he's done two albums with his brother that passed, Long Live Pill. The ethos of the record, there's no one better that I feel like could have presented those emotions. When I heard the track and I worked with the producer / vocalist on the track, we edited the singing part a little bit. I was like, man, nobody makes these kind of songs anymore. Like I grew up and there were so many like grief-stricken tribute, memorial style like records, the Bone Thugs and Harmony, Crossroads, the Every Step, the Sting remake that Puff Daddy did for Biggie. There's tons of them. Gangsta Lean, I Miss My Homie, Master P did one. The One Day You're Here, Next Day You're Gone, UGK. I grew up on these records, like soulful records, very, very, very relatable topics, because, the 90s was violent times, and, I lost friends since my childhood. And as I was thinking about it, when I heard the track and was like working on the singing part, I was like, nobody makes these songs. It's just drill. It's just kill, 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 kill the ops. Like anything, the most you'll get in terms of that is like, we're gonna spin for you, bro. We miss you, and we're gonna go.
Yeah, you gotta get a line here or there. Yeah.
And I'm like, that's like code of the streets kind of thing. I get that, but I'm like, man, where's the human element? So I sent it to bro, when he sent me his verse back, man, I cried my eyes out hearing his verse because you know, the pain, the depth, and I called him and I apologized for asking him to do the record because it was so real. It was too real. It was so authentic that I'm like, I felt like I had done a disservice, like forcing him to tap into those emotions to be able to write the record. I think his verse is incredible on a like purely like critical level or whatever, however you measure it. But I was like, I felt a layer of guilt because I'm like, you know, and he told me, you know, I hope you wouldn't mind me sharing this, but he was like, nah, I don't need to apologize. Like it's necessary. Because it doesn't necessarily go to therapy. It's like I'll have to live with it whether I rap about it or not. So this is me getting that out. And a lot of times that's the sweet spot of this thing for I know people like us, artists like us, of like, man, we can speak for the people that aren't spoken for. We can say things that you may not, you know, from the audience level, may not even be able to put into words, you know, or you may not have the outlet for. And so anytime it's, you know, I've been seeing so many messages, probably hundreds of messages of people like, man, I cried to that song. I cry. I retweeted someone yesterday. Like, I cry every time I listen to that song. I can't get all the way through it. And I've retweeted songs like "Sign" because it's, you know. But I also feel like, man, there's nothing wrong with crying. You know what I mean? Like I said I had a record Shake Back. It was like, you know, it wouldn't be so bad if we weren't discouraged from crying. Because I feel like that's a part of the human condition, or, you know, hip hop culture, urban culture, otherwise. We're like so encouraged to be like men of steel and be so tough. It's like not even realistic. You know, we're gonna combust, we're gonna implode, like holding in all these things because life happens to everybody.
And he sounds like he's choking up at the end of it. And I remember telling people who are performing a lot, they're like, you know, I'm trying not to cry. I was trying not to cry while delivering that. I was like, that sucks, but it's great because that means you were connected to what you were reading, right?
Yeah,
You were
for sure.
connected to your piece to the extent that you were delivering the honest, uncut emotion that other people can't fabricate or recreate. You know what I mean? Like, and you
Yeah,
and who knows what the reverberations of that are, right? The people that hear that and do get connected to themselves and do deal with some shit that they needed to deal with, you never even know that. You know, that's
yeah, for sure. That's yeah, for sure. I mean, it was just like you said. I mean, it went on that tangent because you mentioned Don Tripp and where we meet in the middle. We have that common ground a lot of times. But I mean, that one of the first records I heard from him, the Letter to My Son, was like, man, this is deep. You know what I mean? That was my takeaway from like the audience level of like, I hadn't been through that situation or that set of emotions, but it like moved me so much because I understood it. You know what I'm saying? Like I understood, and like, so, you know, I don't know if it was empathy or sympathy or whatever. It just I was just there with you, right? And you know,
right.
um, so yeah, we're still kind of on that same tangent. I mean, bro is on a historic run for dropping projects, but it's been a few of those projects that just stood out to me of like, man, this is something else. It's cathartic for real. It's like that he's talking about. It was one he's talking about some like childhood stuff, and I'm like, it made me go back and revisit probably some buried trauma on my own. And I'm like, I'm listening, like, man, I don't think I would ever put that in a rap song necessarily. It was tucked away somewhere, but hearing his plight, like, probably made me face it. It allowed me to unearth it in my own space to probably let some things go, or, you know, think differently of them or whatever. And you know, yeah, I think he's an incredible artist, and there's a lot of reality and gravity in what he does.
Yeah. Anybody who hasn't heard it, yeah, 5 times 2.0, track 11 on Imposter Syndrome, featuring Don Tripp, sequel to a Step Brothers song, but very different. And he's not the only one who like the features on this album just really go hard and dig deep. Was it the landlord who said sell drugs if you ever want to run in place.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was powerful. I thought that was a very powerful like line.
That
And
lives
that
in
was
my
without
head.
him. That was without him hearing the rest of my album. He hadn't heard
Yeah.
any of the album, and I was like, man, that's tough because that's one of the things. That's one of the things of like, man, that's street stuff isn't really all it's cracked up to be. You know, you'll get more heartache from it than anything. Like it's headache and heartache or whatever. But yeah, the landlord said that on Ultimate Team Road to Glory.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I wanted to ask, so you mentioned caricature. What advice would you give to like a young artist or, you know, an artist that's kind of striving to go deeper than just the caricature or surface level?
Figure out who you are and run with that. Like figure out who you truly are. Like go look in the mirror. Like, you know, make your when you write your stuff, like proof it with the guy in the mirror, with the, you know, person you really see. And not what up, bro? D, the second one. Right there to your right there. Nah. I retired. No, sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah, but yeah, just figure out. You got to figure yourself out before you can present that, if you will. And I mean, the artistry may help you do that, but you know, when I say like the caricature piece, like this is a business, like we were saying. I think it is easy to lose yourself within all of this, but a lot of times, I mean, the posturing, the caricatures, the characters that people play make for good business, you know?
Right.
I don't think certain guys without being in full costume almost would have been as well received. Or, you know, it may be aligned with the music or the times or the trends or whatever. So I'm not really knocking it. I'm just saying it's not for me because, you know, as an indie artist, as the face of my brand, like this is all I got. So I gotta be comfortable with it. You know, when I leave out of the house, for lack of a better way of putting it, like I'm at work. You know, I'm not necessarily I don't have the luxury of flipping the switch off and just saying, oh, I'm just not gonna, you know, accept that people know me from making music today and just, you know, I take pictures at the grocery store and things like that. So I'm like, the best I can do is be comfortable with who I am and what and who I'm presenting to the world, because I don't want to have to like stick my chest out and put on this mask in order to like interact with people. You know what I'm saying? Like that. I've seen it. I've seen artists where like they don't have their jewelry on. They're like, oh, I can't go. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm like literally, and it's like that was one of the things that made the light bulb go off for me. Like, I don't want to be like that. That's a costume at that point. I mean, it's their jewelry, like, but I'm like, it doesn't define me. Like, I'm got on athleisure gear, and you know, same things. I go pick my daughter up from school. Like, I'll wear that shit to a show. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have to put anything else with who I am, you know, to define me, kind of thing. So
yeah, I mean, it's huge. We've talked about creating a personality, and that there's always going to be a slight separation from who you are to who you are on record. But the thing is, when a lot of people are creating their artistic personality, it becomes what they wish they were. It becomes a Spawn situation, right? Like it, you can get trapped in that. Now you're trapped as something you're not really. And that's rough. If you separate yourself from that and keep a balance, right? Here's the balance. Here's what I am. You're going to be walking around more comfortably, as you said. I think that's a great point. Oh, yeah, crazy. Oh, the other one, by the way, to mention is D1.
Yeah,
D1 on Used to Me went what went crazy. That was awesome.
Yeah, man, that's my guy. That's one of my favorite records on there. I think that record it shows like we're more alike than different. You know, I think maybe I don't know how to explain it. Like the lanes we've existed in are drastically different. When I met bro, he was with I think RCA Inspiration, which was like a gospel branch of Sony RCA or something at the time. Like he's been often categorized as like gospel rapper, Christian rapper. And I think a record like that shows that he's a rapper. He's a purist rapper. Like we're, you know, tagging in and out bar for bar, almost like Styles P and Jadakiss, AZ and Nas level, but like still on a like very like conscious, like upright level. Like I don't curse on that record. I think like 4 of the records are clean. It's just part of my evolution, like because my daughter's around, you know, so I'm more mindful of my message. I'm more intentional, like with my language and lyrics and otherwise. But every record D1 and I have ever done, I've never they've all been clean records, just out of respect of the lane they exist in. But like on a like human level, like we're close in age. We both came up playing basketball. We're college educated guys. We're, you know, family oriented. For what it's worth, like I grew up in church, so you know, even some of the subject matter like makes sense to me or resonates. And yeah, and showing him around here. I've been in Baton Rouge. He's taking me to different spots, and you know, and New Orleans as well. He went to college in Baton Rouge, I believe. He's from New Orleans though, and you know, anytime I'm in this area, it's love. And with that record, we probably had like a 4 hour conversation before we started actually making a record. And that conversation not only led to the record being made, but also helped me title the album. That conversation album was called Love Drug, and I was gonna kind of pick up where Love Drug left off. And that conversation lit the, you know, sparked the idea of like, wait, I wanna go somewhere else with it. We were talking about cognitive dissonance and all sorts of things. Like we're talking about rap from like a cerebral, psychological level, and like because he's been really, really vocal, and you know, raised his profile from just being like outspoken, from being almost like a disruptor or contrarian to a lot of the norms and standards or things that have been normalized. And I'd love to see it because his profile is raised along the way. But because I know this is just who he is. This is what he's always stood on. He's just figuring out how to, you know, almost like trigger the algorithm via his message and you know, in different spaces as like a speaker and a presence. So I feel like we made a amazing record and a thought provoking record and a authentic record that, you know, almost mirrors us as men and artists and otherwise. And you know, it's just like you said, is that detachment, is that I don't know if that's a regret piece, but that's one of those. My relationship has changed. My relationship's changed with my perception and otherwise. It's like acknowledging like you're probably too stuck. You're too stuck in my old ways. I'm not, you know, and like I'm okay with that. I'm not who I used to be. Like,
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, it's you've worked with so many different interesting people. I was telling Kay before we came on that the 2023 Best New Artist of the Country Music Awards is out on Love Drug in 2020 with a rap verse, like Jelly Roll. So yeah,
well, he wasn't on Love Joy. He was on my album before that. He was on Paternity Leave.
paternity
He
leave.
was on
Sorry.
Paternity Leave.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, we've done. Yeah, we're long time homies. We've done a lot of records together. We're working on some music now on Quiet as Kept. but yeah, for sure. I've worked with Jelly Roll going back almost 20 years. We're the same age and have some of the same humble beginnings. And I mean, I love to see what he's been able to do in music at large because I watched him, work for it. I watched him, earn, earn his keep and earn where he is and what.
That's beautiful. That's great.
Yeah.
The Kay, we talk about runs. What would you say is the critical run on Imposter Syndrome? Where
Ooh,
that
because I did want to mention what I loved for me. I think it was Therapy, Used to Me, and then Love What You. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, no, sorry. Let me rephrase that. Okay, so it's Used to Me, Love What You Have, and then Chase Your Dream.
Chase that.
I think
transition,
Chase Your Dream. Like, I don't know
yeah.
why, like that. I mean, that song really hit me. Like,
Yep, I agree.
because I think it was because you mentioned how you were very conscious in terms of how you're sequencing. I mean, I think when that song "Chase Your Dreams" comes on, I think it's just something that it moved me.
Yeah,
for sure, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it was just because the album up to that point was very. I don't want to say it was dark. It's very heavy.
yep.
And when that song came on and the kids were singing the chorus, it was just I mean, like, I'm getting kind of worked up now thinking about it. It's just
It felt like we
incredible.
earned the song, Kay. It felt like we earned it.
That's
If it
a
had
great
been
way to
track
put it.
one, we would have been like, this is I'm being cute. What's happening? But like we earned that song. We got to it through all the hardships that we went through.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
that's what makes it so special, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that song's special to me. That's my daughter is one of the voices you hear on the chorus. It's my daughter and one of the producers, JP on the tracks. His daughter Adeline, my daughter Olney are the two children singing. So, because when I got the reference, I wrote the song in 30 minutes, and Jelly Roll actually came to the studio that night. That session, Small World. He was just saying, but I wrote the song immediately, and I just kind of stored it. And I heard the Yeah 5 Times beat that night, and I didn't write the record. It just kind of resonated with me, and I took both records away. And it wasn't until I was finalizing the album, DJ Chill, who's one of the producers on both of those records, reached out and was like, "Hey, are you gonna use Chase Your Dreams?" And I was like, "You know what? I probably should." I was just going through the records, and I had another song I wrote to my daughter directly called Genesis. I put it out on Father's Day as a single, and it kind of it's parallel to Chase Your Dreams, but I was like, I didn't think that both records belonged on the same album, and since I serviced it as a single, I was just gonna let it exist there. And I was like, yeah, I can use Chase Your Dreams. They send me the files. I think I'm gonna get my daughter to sing over top of the sample. And he was like, man, that's not a sample. That's JP's daughter. And I was like, at that point, it was like almost like cosmic. I was like, man, that's a really cool thing for a producer's child and the artist's child to be doing a chorus on a record. And because I wrote the song as affirmations and advice, counsel and otherwise for my child. But as I read it literally, it's advice and affirmations for anyone. I just was in my, fatherhood bag, if you will. Like you said, like even the listeners earned it because, I don't think the majority of my album is for her. There's probably not, but maybe 2 or 3 songs I would be comfortable with her listening to, honestly.
Right.
But for everybody else and for everything else that you guys have endured with me, or even just from audience, maybe these 40 minutes up to that point, it's like this is where I am. This is where I am when the mic goes off. These are the conversations, and this is the voice that I speak from most frequently, most boldly, most confidently, and it also makes none of that other stuff really matter. You know what I'm saying? And so yeah, that was why it was placed where it was on the album. Is kind of like this is kind of a destination point almost. Like it's about the journey more than a destination, but that's me maybe as peaceful or as like I'm trying to think of the right word, as upstanding in music form as I've ever been able to be. I mean, the record that you referenced with Jelly Roll was close. I had a record called Girl Dad with Don Tripp and Jelly Roll, and we all have daughters. You know, so it was the album was paternity leave, was strongly themed around my parental journey, but it was very new to me. I made a lot of that album coming out of like COVID lockdown, and where I was 24 hours around the clock on daddy duty. So that became the theme on my album at that time. Here I am 4 years later, and parenting is a lot realer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like I get a lot of questions I don't even have the answers to. And so, you know, my level of insight and introspection, and I'd even say wisdom, you know, are like off the charts from where they were when I even made that record. It was almost a shock and awe. Like, man, I'm a dad. Like, part of my mind was, what the hell am I gonna do? But like now, it's just kind of like, well, I'm doing it, and I gotta do it full time. So, you know, I want to raise a person to be better than me. I think that's probably every parent's, you know, hope. But and then that goes for opportunity and everything else, but also mindset, because I can remember not being, you know, the environment I grew up in, not necessarily being encouraged, like your dreams and your, you know, everything being like embraced as much. And it's like, so I want to make sure that's you know, in the forefront. But yeah, for sure. But again, to the sequence part, coming out of the therapy record, because therapy was immediately after the breakup song, the Unblock Me, and then the Yeah 5 times. Is like the lowest of lows. You lose your love interest, you lose a loved one. It's like, man, we gotta we gotta work on ourselves. We gotta try to get it together. Like I'm advocating for therapy in a literal sense. And then it's like coming out of that, it's like I'm also acknowledging like, all right, I'm in a better space, and respect it or check it. So, you know, maybe you got too used to me being in low vibrational spaces. That's not where I am. I'm on the other side of that. Love what you have. Again, it's like that's the mindset I gotta use moving forward. I can't take things and people and whatever, take the love that I do have for granted, chasing something else or not loving myself. And then from there, it's like the thing I love the most is like I said, the affirmation part of it, because that's that's the other part, man. We was like I mentioned self-sabotage, and otherwise the imposter syndrome is literally, you know, I made it a double entendre, but it is literally believing that you're not good enough.
Right.
So a song like Chase Your Dreams is the antithesis of imposter syndrome. It's like, no, like just don't give up. Like you're good enough. You got this. Like it's as much self-reflection, like I said, and that comes from experience. Like I only got here because I never stopped. You know what I'm saying? I never gave up on myself.
I'm so glad that you highlighted that run, Kay. Because it's not where I go naturally, but holy shit, going from 14 to 15 is just a hell of a thing. And just as emotional as you summed it up. For me, I would go 7 to 11 if featuring Robin Raynell through Yeah 5 times 2.0. I think that run gives you it gives you like sensual, it gives you vengeful, it gives you mournful, it gives you all the kind of all the emotions that sometimes rappers are uncomfortable living in.
Yeah.
That you can get from Starlito and like only a few other people. It's like, I guess I was thinking about it. I was thinking about it's like Scarface has said shit that like I go to sleep thinking about. you
Yeah,
know?
it's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorites all time.
And so Starlito does that at points. He's like, just leaves you with something that you have to chew on for a while. And there's just a beautiful relationship to your ideas that forms because you're covering so much important human space, I think. Yeah.
So yeah, for me, I mean, I know y'all didn't ask. Chase Your Dreams is like the record that means the most to me
Yep.
personally for obvious reasons. I've got to collaborate with my daughter. Yeah, Five Times is the most emotional, one of the most emotional records I've ever made. But the run, if you will, and it's really two songs,
Yep.
but it's trying to think which one comes first. It's Imposter Syndrome
Stay
and
dangerous.
Stay Dangerous. To
Mm,
me, those songs capture how I feel. Like they capture the essence of what I care to express musically. Like they're the songs that get the most like burn in the car when I'm like by myself.
mm,
And it's because like Stay Dangerous, it's just I think it's perspectively important. It's a song about reflection, about survivor's guilt, about the things that can just plague you from existing in a certain space, a space that I've existed in for far too long. Um, Imposter syndrome. When I set out to write the record, I didn't think it was gonna be the title track. I didn't, I just heard a beat that I love. And the two things I put at the top of my notes when I started writing was detachment and small victories. And it was
mm.
just like buzzwords almost. So between that, like being able to be reflective and self-reflective and like kind of view your own survivor's guilt, like stepping outside of it to like view it and maybe even like diagnose it, understand it better, to go from that to detaching from those things, like consecutive records, like that was to me the most important part. But also I can accept it to each his own, and it makes me feel good as an artist to know that obviously, I mean, I was the writer and the creator, but that you guys attach yourselves to different parts of the album as like this stuck out to me, or this is what sticks, because that to me means that I did a good job. I don't feel like I wasted bars, I wasted words, I wasted space and the soundscape of it. But I on a different day I may only listen to the same three or four songs that out of for different reasons or whatever. Like
Nope. No, I hear you. That's awesome. That's great to hear. Kay, do you have any other questions before we go to
No.
we go to recommendation corner where we recommend shit that we're listening to and really enjoy. I'm gonna start out with I went on Twitter today and I was like, yo, like let's just name underrated rappers that come to the top of our head, right? And I started with like Big Sant and Suede Jury and just kind of just random people I was thinking about. And my timeline joined in and was throwing in stuff and people I hadn't heard mentioned in a long time. And there was one rapper I'd never heard of, Elevator J. And I was like, I gotta listen to this. I like that name. Um,
okay.
and Elevator J, and it's called For Y'all. I think it's North Carolina. Um, shit just fucking goes. It's great. It's super fun. Super good. Almost sounds like vocally Killer Mike-ish back in the day. Like
Mm.
real dope. For y'all, Elevator J, shout out to OG Nick Marsh, who just got his logo for Focus Hip Hop, for recommending that. The other one, K, this is gonna be our album. I'm telling you. So
Okay.
in October 18th, 2024, Jeanette King from Montreal is going to drop Incantation, follow up to What We Lost, that was in 2021 that I went nuts for. Got 2 singles out. This is going to be that, like, you remember that 80s R&B that was post disco, but it was like pre R. Kelly? You know, I feel like it's a salute to that period of time, that
Ooh,
like Luther space, you know?
ooh, okay.
I feel like it's a salute to that. So I'm looking forward to that. You know, already, tweeted at her, let her know I'm hyped for it. So yeah, it's really, really dope. So she's great. Montreal's cooking, man. Montreal's got good people in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to Craven and to everybody doing it. Yeah. Starlito, what are you rocking with? What are you bumping?
I'm listening to old stuff, man. Honestly, like while I was making my album, I kind of intentionally wasn't really trying to listen to anything current. I really wasn't listening to much of anything because I was just making music and just kind of there. My daughter controls the radio majority of the time, so that's his own thing. She's got about 100 song playlist, and I happen to know all those damn pop songs and stuff now because of
Woo!
that.
You're out there
But
listening to Baby Shark, you know?
no, she's transcended to Katy Perry and
Okay. Okay.
things like that. No, it gets deep. But
That's
as far as a recommendation, man, that's as an artist I just partnered with from here, Big Top. He's I think he's a breath of fresh air for street rap, trap rap. It's very like fun if that's possible to be fun in that space, but
yeah.
I don't like comparing artists and things, but just as far as a mode, it puts me in a mind of like the early Gucci Mane.
Oh,
Um,
okay. All right.
yeah,
Tough.
that's something to look out for. I mean, I wouldn't be me if I didn't promote what was going on around me. I really enjoy Mob Squad Nars music. When you say Elevator J, artist out of Jacksonville, Florida, Mob Squad Nard, who I work with really closely, my label as well. I think he had Elevator J on one of his albums that he did with Johnny Shipes and partnered with his label a while back. I think I'd heard of Elevator J through Mob Squad Nard, so it was a familiar name to me. But I'm really into Mob Squad Nard's music. He actually linked me with the producer Pyro Beats, who's also from Jacksonville. He did I think 3 or 4 tracks on the album. He did the D1 record, he did Therapy, and he did Black AF1. But it came from me hearing a record from Mob Squad Nard, and I was like, man, who did that track? Like, he told me, I was like, please put me in touch with him. So I think he's got an ear for good beats and a unique flow. There are people that I know. I don't know if that's cheating for a recommendation or people
No, good. I
people
mean,
I could
I was gonna say I'm gonna listen to Permanent Scars from the Landlord to try and get up on the Landlord. I'm very into the features. Yeah.
for sure. But yeah, Propane's last album as well. Propane's last album was crazy. I think it's called Made from Scratch, if I'm not mistaken. It's dope. It's lyrical. It's real. It's vivid like imagery in his raps. Um, that would probably be another great recommendation as far as a project because I like to listen to albums. I like to listen to
Yeah.
complete bodies of work
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Agreed.
things that have themes. Like when I do get a 30-40 minute ride in the car, I want to just ride out to something that gives me I listen to 400 Degrees and Reasonable Doubt like they just came out last week
Yeah.
because I can let them spin, and I think I was listening to Reasonable Doubt when I parked my car earlier just for insight's sake, but
Yep.
you know
Propane is one of those rappers you just plug in and let him go. Like Propane can rap anywhere over anything. Uh, just tried and true. Someone with crazy
for
ability.
sure.
Yeah. So Kay, what are you rocking with?
Nothing new. I did go back to Drought 3 by Lil Wayne.
Oh well.
Okay.
I've been listening to
Yeah.
that heavy the past week.
That's crazy. This is as an all-time, one of the all-time greatest mixtapes.
Yeah.
Little known fact, he shouted me out on that mixtape. He said shout out to All Star. I was going by All Star at that time before I changed my name to Starlito. But yeah, that's not why I think he's one of the greatest mixtapes ever. Like, he's rapping his ass off on there. But no, it's just one of those things. When I go to write my memoir, there's so many fly on the wall moments so early in my career. Like I said, from being on Trap or Die to being on the first 6 cocaine music,
Right.
Yo Gotti's projects to being on like Father Like Son. I just got a plaque 18 years later. I got a gold plaque from that album just in the mail the other day. So, you know, and even fast forward and working with the Gucci Manes and Kevin Gates, Lil Baby, working with Young Dolph since early on in his career. Like, but yeah, I did get shouted out on the Drought 3. Like, whatever that's worth. So.
I was thinking about that as another secret to like how your longevity and your success is like be available and be at top shape. And if you're available at top shape, they'll plug you in, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I said the best of ability is availability. So that's real.
Stay available, stay dangerous, man.
No, for sure. I think that's been it. You know, when called upon, like make sure you deliver.
That's it. That's all I got. Thank you for being here. This is fantastic. And everybody go to grindhard.com for more updates.
Launching pad.
Yep.
Man, I appreciate you guys. Appreciate the good convo. Appreciate your time. And stay in touch with me, man.
Absolutely. Hit me up with anything new. We appreciate your contribution to the game.
What will tomorrow